Well, Megan Blandford wrote for the Brisbane Times on how she tackled perfectionism and became a better parent. Good for her. Is being a perfectionist holding you back, though, from being a better parent? It's a treat to have you back with us today, Collett Smart. Thank you so much for joining us. You're a psychologist, so I'm really happy that you are here to answer some of these questions. What does a perfectionist parent look like?
I think a perfectionist in general, in my opinion, there's kind of two pillars to a perfectionist. There's the one pillar which is very self-focused. So everything's of an incredibly high standard. Nothing short of perfect can be let go. So you're very self-critical. The second pillar to me is how you perceive others perceiving you. So you're very afraid of people finding out that you actually can't do everything to this incredibly high standard. You're afraid that people are going to see that somehow you mess up as a parent. And then you're always shifting the goalposts. I think perfectionists never or very rarely celebrate their successes because they feel as though they're always looking back at their past mistakes or ahead at what they've done wrong, what's still coming and how they're going to do that wrong too. So they never live in the moment. And I think it really affects our relationships a lot. So it tends to seep into a whole lot of areas of our lives.
I was just going to ask, we can kind of understand that for performance-based activities like work and things like that. How does that translate into parenting or, a relationship? How does that perfectionism?
So I think perfectionism affects relationships a great deal, particularly around how we perceive what our own children do, but also how we're critical of ourselves, and so we often project that onto our kids. We never feel like what we're doing is good enough, so we don't ever take praise. When our partners or our spouses tell us we've done something well, we never just enjoy the moment when we've done something as a parent. We just seem to always be hard on ourselves.
It's actually, this article actually struck a chord with me because I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I was going to use that term. I love it.
But it's still a really big struggle for me because, for me, striving for perfection is trying to be better.
Yes.
And so if you don't you just stagnate?
So I think there's a difference. I think there's what we call the neurotic perfectionist and then the healthy perfectionist. And I'll confess, I'm also a recovering perfectionist. And when my children were young, I was very big on neatness. I still am to an extent, but my husband said to me once, he said, "Babe, our kids don't need to grow up in a museum." And that actually...
I love that.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't.
I went, that's true. Our children aren't going to remember how perfectly wonderful everything was and how scheduled every activity was. So it's not to say that we don't strive for excellence or we don't strive to do things well. I think it's when nothing short of perfect is ever good enough, we actually then never allow our children to enjoy something, or we never relax. And I think we've got to be kind to ourselves. We've got to have times when we just relax and let things go. Sometimes when we let things go are the times when we actually have the most fun.
So is perfectionism a learned trait or is it innate? Is it part of our personality?
It can be both. If people have grown up in households where they're always punished for never meeting a certain standard, you can develop that kind of personality. But it can be something that is innate. We see little children who everything has to be ordered all of the time, and then some children are total slobs, and they live in the same home. So it can be a bit of both. But really, it's even teaching our children to be kind to themselves when they don't meet a certain level, and giving yourself permission to celebrate when you do things well, and getting people, I think, to hold you accountable, like my husband did with me. When you feel like you're not measuring up, actually own your failures. I think it's important to go, you know what, to fail is to be human, and that's actually okay.
I think that's a good point, especially probably with children. Especially if you have a tendency towards perfectionism, is learning to let them feel like being in your presence is a safe space to fail and to make mistakes.
I think that's modelling to our children that being failing at times is actually okay. It's part of who we all are.
It's sometimes easier said than done, though.
It is. And I think it's habit. We have to, you and I would, as recovering perfectionists, it's something I think that we have to develop a new skill at. We have to develop new habits, particularly if we've been doing it for years. Giving ourselves permission to not do something perfectly well is something we've got to learn.
So what does that look like if you're trying to recover? What does that look like? Being kind to yourself, what does that look like?
So things like giving yourself boundaries, and in terms of accepting a certain standard and then actually being okay with it, and confessing to someone when you feel like, I'm feeling inadequate, I feel like I haven't measured up. Because remember, as perfectionists, we're terrified of people's opinions of us.
Especially as perfectionist parents,
Yes.
because it's so hard not to compare your parenting to somebody else, or your child to somebody else's child.
And so I think it starts with confessing that, actually saying, you know what, I'm struggling, I feel like I'm not doing this well. It's weird, but somehow when we actually verbalize something, it actually takes the power away from whatever that is that's holding us. So when we actually fess up to our husbands or a good friend and actually tell them about how we feel like we're failing, that's one of the first steps to actually letting go of some of what we're holding on to.
I love your wisdom there, and I love how you're saying set yourself up with a network that's going to support you and carry you through, because parenting is challenging, you know, at its best and its worst. So I love what you've said there. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you being here and sharing that with us.
Thanks for having me.
Ladies, a pleasure as always. Love having you here. And don't forget, you can watch more of our shows on our website, mumsathetable.com. Otherwise, we will see you next week. Have a good one. Bye for now.